For decades, the gardening industry has sold you fungicides, pesticides, root stimulants, and soil drenches, each one packaged in a way that makes you feel like you need a chemistry degree and a large budget just to keep your plants alive. But there is a single compound sitting in most medicine cabinets right now, available at any pharmacy for under $2, that does the work of 6 different garden products simultaneously. It kills fungal disease, eliminates root rot, destroys pests, boosts germination, all without leaving toxic residue behind. That compound is hydrogen peroxide. And the reason the garden industry has never told you about it is the same reason they keep you buying a different product for every problem. Let's get into it. Number 15. It eliminates root rot without chemicals. Root rot is one of the most common reasons houseplants and container vegetables die. And the typical advice from garden centers is to buy a specialized fungicide drench that costs $15 to $30 per bottle. Most of those products contain synthetic fungicides that kill beneficial soil organisms, along with the harmful ones, leaving your soil biologically dead and dependent on more products. Hydrogen peroxide solves root rot differently. When you apply a diluted solution, 3% hydrogen peroxide mixed with water at a ratio of roughly 1 part peroxide to 3 parts water, it releases oxygen directly into the waterlogged soil around affected roots. That burst of oxygen is lethal to the anaerobic pathogens like Phytophthora and Pythium that cause root rot because those organisms cannot survive in an oxygen-rich environment. Meanwhile, the treatment leaves the soil's aerobic biology intact. The same organisms that break down organic matter, fix nitrogen, and support healthy root development survive the treatment because they are aerobic. They thrive in oxygen-rich conditions. After a single drench application, roots that still have living tissue begin to recover within days. New white root tips emerge from areas that were previously brown and decaying. Root rot is the silent killer beneath the soil, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide deals with the visible killer on top of it, the fungal disease that spreads across your leaves in a matter of hours under the right conditions. Number 14. It destroys powdery mildew and fungal disease on contact. Powdery mildew spreads fast. One affected leaf becomes 10 within a week under humid conditions, and garden centers stock entire sections of fungicide sprays designed specifically for this problem. Those sprays require repeat applications, leave waxy residues on edible plants, and often come with warnings about runoff and aquatic toxicity. A spray solution of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 6 parts water applied directly to affected foliage kills powdery mildew spores on contact through oxidation. The hydrogen peroxide molecule breaks down into water and oxygen immediately after application, leaving absolutely no residue on leaves, fruit, or soil. The same spray works on botrytis, downy mildew, early blight, and a range of other common fungal diseases. Unlike systemic fungicides that work by being absorbed into plant tissue, hydrogen peroxide works on contact, which means there is nothing to wait out before harvesting edible crops. For organic growers and kitchen gardeners, this is particularly important. You can spray a tomato plant in the morning and eat the fruit that afternoon without concern. Powdery mildew on the leaves is a problem you can see coming. The next use of hydrogen peroxide targets a problem you almost never see until it's too late, a soil pathogen that lives beneath the surface and destroys seedlings before they ever reach maturity. Number 13. It sterilizes potting mix in garden soil before planting. Most gardeners reuse potting soil from previous seasons or plant directly into ground that has hosted diseased crops. Both practices carry over fungal spores, pest eggs, and pathogenic bacteria that attack new plantings before they even establish. The garden industry sells sterilized seed starting mix at a premium for this exact reason, and then sells more of it every single year. A soil drench of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 1 part water, applied to potting mix or garden beds before planting, oxidizes pathogens, fungal spores, and pest eggs in the top layer of soil. After the solution breaks down, which happens within 30 to 60 minutes, it leaves nothing behind except water and oxygen, both of which improve soil conditions rather than harming them. The oxygen released during this breakdown process also loosens compacted soil slightly, creating better aeration in the root zone before new plants go in. You are simultaneously sterilizing and conditioning the soil in a single step. This works for seed trays, container mixes, and in-ground beds equally well. And because the compound breaks down completely, you can plant into treated soil the same day. Soil sterilization solves the invisible threat before planting, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide solves one of the most frustrating problems that hits gardeners the moment seeds go into the ground, the moment when germination simply refuses to happen. Number 12. It dramatically improves germination rates. Seed companies do not tell you this. Neither do the germination guides on the back of most seed packets, but soaking seeds in a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution before planting consistently produces faster germination and higher germination rates across a wide range of plant species. The mechanism is straightforward. Hydrogen peroxide breaks down the outer seed coat slightly, allowing water to penetrate the seed more effectively. At the same time, it kills any mold, bacteria, or fungal spores present on the seed's surface, the same pathogens that cause damping off and pre-germination rot in seed trays. The method is simple. Soak seeds in a solution of 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide per cup of water for 2 to 8 hours before planting. Harder coated seeds like beets, parsnips, and peppers benefit from longer soaking. Smaller, softer coated seeds like lettuce and basil need only a short soak. Gardeners who do this consistently report germination beginning 1 to 3 days earlier than untreated seeds, with noticeably higher rates of successful emergence across the entire seed tray. Faster germination gets your plants into the ground sooner, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide keeps them alive once they get there, by dealing with the pest problem that arrives every season and causes gardeners to reach for sprays that do far more harm than good. Number 11. It kills aphids, mites, and soft-bodied pests without poisoning your garden. Insecticides have a well-documented problem. They do not discriminate. A broad-spectrum insecticide applied to kill aphids also kills the predatory insects, ladybugs, lacewings, parasitic wasps, that would have controlled those same aphids naturally. The result is a cycle of dependency, where the pest population recovers faster than the beneficial population, requiring more and more product each season. A spray of 3% hydrogen peroxide applied undiluted or diluted to 50%, directly onto aphid colonies, spider mite infestations, and fungus gnat populations kills soft-bodied insects immediately through oxidative damage to their cell membranes. Because it breaks down within minutes of application, it does not persist in the environment and poses no ongoing risk to insects that arrive on the plant after treatment. This is a critical distinction. You can spray an infested plant in the morning, and by afternoon, the beneficial predators that patrol your garden are unaffected by the treatment. The pest is gone. The control system that prevents reinfestation remains intact. For fungus gnats specifically, the small flies that breed in moist potting soil, and whose larvae damage roots, a soil drench of diluted hydrogen peroxide kills larvae in the top inch of soil while leaving the plant completely unharmed. Pest control without biological collateral damage is the goal. And the next use of hydrogen peroxide takes the chemistry that kills pests and turns it towards something that helps your plants grow faster than anything on a fertilizer label has ever promised. Number 10. It oxygenates the root zone and accelerates plant growth. Plant roots require oxygen to function. In compacted, waterlogged, or heavily cultivated soil, the oxygen levels in the root zone drop significantly, and root metabolism slows. Plants growing in low oxygen soil look dull, grow slowly, and become more susceptible to disease, even when nutrients are adequate. When hydrogen peroxide solution reaches the root zone, it releases free oxygen directly into the soil around the roots. This additional oxygen accelerates cellular respiration in root tissue, speeds nutrient uptake, and promotes the rapid development of fine root hairs, the structures responsible for most of the plant's water and nutrient absorption. Gardeners who add hydrogen peroxide to their watering routine, using a ratio of roughly 1 teaspoon of 3% solution per gallon of water, consistently observe noticeably more vigorous growth compared to untreated plants in the same conditions. The effect is most pronounced in containers and raised beds where soil compaction limits natural aeration. This is not a fertilizer. It adds no nutrients. What it adds is the oxygen that allows plants to use the nutrients as already in the soil more efficiently. In many situations, that oxygen availability is the limiting factor, not the nutrient supply. Oxygen in the root zone drives growth, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide takes that same principle and applies it to one of the most critical and commonly failed moments in the entire plant life cycle. Number 9. It saves cuttings and transplants from transplant shock. Transplant shock kills more plants than most gardeners realize. When roots are disturbed during repotting or transplanting, small root hairs tear away, and the plant's ability to uptake water collapses temporarily. During this window, even a healthy plant in good soil can look wilted and stressed for days. And in that weakened state, it becomes vulnerable to opportunistic pathogens in the soil. Watering transplants with a solution of 1 teaspoon of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water immediately after planting does 2 things simultaneously. First, it kills surface pathogens in the soil that would otherwise attack damaged root tissue. Second, it delivers a burst of oxygen to the disrupted root zone that accelerates the development of new root hairs to replace those lost during transplanting. The same treatment applied to fresh cuttings placed in water or rooting medium suppresses the bacterial rot that normally affects the cut stem before roots develop. Cuttings treated this way show notably lower rates of stem rot and faster root initiation compared to untreated cuttings in the same conditions. For gardeners who propagate from cuttings, herbs, houseplants, fruiting shrubs, this single treatment can dramatically increase success rates without any additional products. Cuttings and transplants are the most vulnerable plants in your garden, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide protects the most vulnerable part of any established plant, the area where disease enters and takes hold first. Number 8. It disinfects pruning tools and prevents disease transmission. Every time you cut a diseased plant with a pruning tool and then use that same tool on a healthy one, you transmit pathogens directly from one plant to the other. This is how bacterial cankers, fungal blights, and viral diseases spread through entire orchards and garden beds. The standard recommendation is to clean tools with bleach solution between cuts, but bleach corrodes metal, degrades tool quality over time, and requires rinsing and drying steps that most gardeners skip because the process is inconvenient. Hydrogen peroxide at 3% concentration applied directly to pruning blades between cuts kills bacteria, fungal spores, and most viral particles on contact. It does not corrode metal. It does not require rinsing. It evaporates cleanly within seconds of application, leaving tools dry and ready for the next cut. For tasks like pruning through a plant affected by fire blight, black rot, or bacterial leaf scorch, diseases where a single contaminated cut can kill an entire branch, this practice is not optional. It is the difference between controlling the disease and spreading it. A small spray bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide kept in your tool bag turns disease-safe pruning from an inconvenient multi-step process into something that takes less than 3 seconds between every cut. Cleaner tools protect every plant they touch, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide protects the environment those plants grow in, specifically the water you use to feed them. Number 7. It purifies and oxygenates. Irrigation water. Municipal tap water contains chlorine, chloramine, and sometimes residual disinfection byproducts that suppress beneficial soil microbiology. These compounds are present to make water safe for drinking, but in garden soil, they reduce populations of the bacteria and fungi that drive nutrient cycling and support plant root health. Filtered or stored rainwater often carries the opposite problem: algae, bacteria, and organic contaminants that block irrigation lines and introduce pathogens to the root zone. Adding hydrogen peroxide to irrigation water at a rate of roughly 3 milliliters of 3% solution per liter of water neutralizes chlorine and chloramine through oxidation and simultaneously kills the algae and bacterial contamination present in stored water. The peroxide breaks down within minutes after application, leaving clean, oxygenated water with no residual disinfectants. For drip irrigation and soaker hose system, this treatment prevents the biofilm buildup inside lines that eventually leads to blockages and uneven water distribution. A monthly flush of diluted hydrogen peroxide through the system keeps lines clear without disassembly. For gardeners using hydroponic systems or growing in water culture, this application is even more critical. Pathogens in recirculating water systems spread to every plant in the setup simultaneously, and hydrogen peroxide is one of the few treatments compatible with living plant roots at the correct concentration. Cleaner water feeds healthier plants, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide works on a problem that affects the containers, pots, and beds where those plants live long before the water even arrives. Number 6. It removes algae and biofilm from pots, trays, and greenhouse surfaces. The green slime that builds up on the inside of pots, seed trays, greenhouse staging, and watering equipment is not harmless. Algae and biofilm on these surfaces harbor fungal spores, bacterial pathogens, and pest eggs that contaminate new plantings every time you reuse equipment. The conventional response is diluted bleach, effective but corrosive, persistent, and harmful to beneficial soil biology if residue reaches the root zone. A spray of 3% hydrogen peroxide applied to algae-covered surfaces breaks down the cell walls of algae colonies through oxidation, dissolving the green coating within minutes without scrubbing. On porous surfaces like terracotta and unglazed ceramic, it penetrates deeper than bleach and reaches spores embedded in the material that surface cleaning misses. Because it breaks down to water and oxygen, there is no residue concern when treated pots are immediately refilled with soil and planted. No rinsing step is required. No waiting period is needed. This same application works on greenhouse glass, cold frame covers, and plastic polytunnel film, where algae growth reduces light transmission and creates humid, disease-prone microclimates. Keeping those surfaces clean with periodic hydrogen peroxide treatment improves light levels and reduces the ambient disease pressure on every plant inside. Clean equipment protects your investment season after season, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide protects an investment that most gardeners make every spring, and then watch slowly deteriorate through the growing season. Number 5. It treats fungal problems in lawn grass without harming the lawn. Lawn fungicides are among the most expensive and most frequently purchased products in the garden industry. Brown patch, dollar spot, red thread, and rust are recurring fungal problems on grass that lawn care companies and product manufacturers have built entire product categories around. Products that require repeated applications through the growing season at significant cost per treatment. A solution of hydrogen peroxide applied through a hose-end sprayer at a dilution of approximately half a cup of 3% solution per gallon of water treats active fungal infections across large lawn areas at a fraction of the cost of commercial fungicide applications. The oxidative action kills active fungal mycelium in the thatch layer and on leaf surfaces without harming grass plants, soil organisms, or the beneficial fungi associated with healthy turf root systems. The treatment also penetrates the thatch layer, the dense mat of dead and living grass material at the soil surface, and reduces its depth by accelerating the decomposition of dead organic matter. Excessive thatch is itself a contributing factor to lawn disease, creating a humid environment where fungal pathogens thrive. Hydrogen peroxide addresses both the active infection and the structural condition that promotes recurrence. For homeowners spending on professional lawn fungicide applications, calculating the annual savings from switching to hydrogen peroxide as a primary treatment tool produces results that are genuinely difficult to justify ignoring. Lawn health is where many gardeners spend the most money, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide applies to the indoor equivalent of that problem, the place where most people have the most plants and the least airflow. Number 4. It controls mold in indoor growing environments. Indoor growing creates conditions that outdoor gardens rarely replicate. Consistent warmth, limited air circulation, high humidity around dense plant canopies, and artificial lighting that cannot dry leaf surfaces the way sunlight does. These conditions are ideal for mold. Gray mold, sooty mold, and various penicillium species colonize indoor growing environments quickly and spread from plant to plant through airborne spores. A weekly preventive spray of 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide to 5 parts water applied to plant surfaces and growing medium surfaces creates an environment that is chemically inhospitable to mold spore germination. The oxidative barrier disrupts spore attachment and germination without harming plant tissue at this concentration. For grow tents, indoor propagation chambers, and greenhouse environments that stay sealed for extended periods, adding hydrogen peroxide to the humidifier water or misting system at very low concentrations maintains ambient air quality that significantly reduces mold incidence compared to untreated environment. This application is particularly valuable during seed starting in late winter and early spring, when indoor conditions are at their most humid. Heating systems are running continuously, and damping off rates peak among seedlings crowded in propagation trays. Indoor mold is the silent thief of seedling crop, and the next use of hydrogen peroxide addresses something that operates at a scale far beyond your seedling tray: the health of your compost and the biology of your entire garden system. Number 3, it accelerates composting and eliminates odor. Compost that smells bad is compost that has gone anaerobic. The beneficial decomposition process that turns kitchen scraps and garden waste into rich humus is aerobic, driven by oxygen-breathing bacteria and fungi. When a compost pile becomes too wet, too compacted, or too densely packed, oxygen depletes, anaerobic bacteria dominate, and the result is a pile that produces hydrogen sulfide and ammonia gases, the source of the smell that makes neighbors complain and gardeners avoid their own compost heaps. Applying hydrogen peroxide solution to a poorly aerated compost pile through a watering can or spray effectively reoxygenates the pile, killing anaerobic bacteria and creating conditions where aerobic decomposers can reestablish and resume active breakdown. The oxygen released by the peroxide also breaks up matted layers of wet material that restrict airflow through the pile. A single treatment can shift an anaerobic, odorous pile back to active, odor-free decomposition within 48 to 72 hours. This is faster than turning the pile manually and more thorough in addressing pockets of anaerobic material deep within the heap where physical turning cannot reach. For gardeners who vermicompost, using worms to decompose kitchen scraps, hydrogen peroxide treatment is not appropriate for the active worm bed, but it can be used to pre-treat new material before adding it to the worm bin, killing pathogens and pest eggs without harming the worms who arrive later. Faster compost means better soil faster, and the final use of hydrogen peroxide brings all of these applications together into a system that replaces a significant portion of what the garden industry charges you to buy every single season. Number 2, it replaces multiple expensive garden products. Simultaneously, consider what sits on the shelves of a typical garden center tennisauce: fungicide sprays, root stimulant solutions, insecticidal soaps, seed treatment products, soil sterilants, tool disinfectants, and irrigation system cleaners. Each one is sold as a specialized product for a specific problem, priced individually, and marketed in a way that makes them feel indispensable. A single bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide from a pharmacy, typically priced at under $2 for a standard bottle, performs the core function of every one of those products at appropriate dilutions, not a weaker, compromised version of those functions. The actual function, through a mechanism of action that is scientifically well understood and requires no secondary ingredients. The math for a typical home gardener spending on seasonal garden products is confronting when you work it out. Fungicide spray, $12 to $25 per bottle, 3 to 4 applications per season. Root stimulant drench, $15 to $30. Insecticidal soap, $8 to $15. Seed treatment, $5 to $12. Tool disinfectant, $5 to $10. Replace all of those with hydrogen peroxide at the appropriate dilutions, and the annual cost for the same coverage drops to the price of a few pharmacy bottles. Less than $10 total for a full growing season for most home gardens. The garden industry has not hidden hydrogen peroxide from you intentionally, but it has had no incentive to tell you that one of the most effective garden tools available costs less than your morning coffee. The ability to replace multiple products with one compound is powerful, and the final use of hydrogen peroxide is the one that experienced growers consider the most valuable of all. The application that most directly protects the investment you make in every plant you grow. Number 1, it creates a complete plant health system that costs almost nothing. The reason hydrogen peroxide belongs at the top of this list is not because any single one of its applications is miraculous. It is because all of them work together to create a continuous, compounding protective system around your plants that addresses every major threat in the garden: disease, pests, poor soil aeration, contaminated water, failing transplants, struggling seed, using a single, inexpensive, non-toxic compound that degrades completely into water and oxygen. A consistent hydrogen peroxide protocol looks like this. Seeds are soaked before planting to improve germination and eliminate surface pathogens. Soil is drenched before planting to sterilize the root zone. Transplants are watered in with diluted solution to prevent shock and root damage. A preventive foliar spray is applied every 10 to 14 days to suppress fungal disease and deter soft-bodied pests. Irrigation water is treated monthly to clear beneficial algae and neutralize chlorine. Tools are sprayed between cuts to prevent disease transmission. Containers are cleaned between seasons to remove biofilm. Each step in that protocol is inexpensive, fast, and leaves no residue that could harm plants, soil biology, or the people and animals in your garden. Combined, they address the majority of problems that drive gardeners back to the store for specialized products throughout the growing season. There is one critical requirement that holds this entire system together: concentration. 3% hydrogen peroxide, the standard brown bottle from any pharmacy, is the correct starting concentration for all of these applications when diluted appropriately. Higher concentrations, such as the 35% food-grade versions sold online, are dangerously reactive, require careful dilution, and cause chemical burns on skin and plant tissue if handled incorrectly. They are not necessary and not recommended for home garden use. Standard 3%, diluted to the ratios described for each application, is all that is needed. It is available everywhere. It costs almost nothing, and it works. The garden industry has spent decades building a product category for every problem you encounter. Hydrogen peroxide is the single answer to most of those problems, which is precisely why you have never seen it advertised on a garden center shelf. Before you go, which of these 15 applications are you going to try first? Or have you already been using hydrogen peroxide in your garden and seen results the product labels never promise? Tell us in the comments. If you are ready to stop replacing products and start using one thing that actually works, subscribe now. And if you think hydrogen peroxide is the only garden secret the industry has been hiding, click the next video. What they are doing to the fertilizer market is going to make everything you just read feel like a minor footnote. We will see you there.